For the last year, I have been using the Ryzen 5800 X3D in my gaming and productivity machine, and today I wanted to share with you my experiences. I'll tell you how the CPU performs after 1 year, whether I encountered any issues with it, how good it is for productivity and the work that I do, and tell you whether I think it's still worth it to get it in 2023. So just a very quick reminder of what the CPU is. Basically a fresh approach from AMD to gaming CPUs, where instead of relying on high CPU frequencies to deliver high frame rates and performance, the system relies on high amounts of cache for storing variables and pointers, which means less work for the CPU. The cache is stacked on top of each other, and that's where the name comes from, 3D cache. After huge commercial success and a good acclaim from reviewers, AMD released more 3D CPUs, including 7800 X3D, 7900 X3D, 7950 X3D and 5600 X3D, which still runs on AM4 socket. Okay, but enough about history of 3D cache CPUs. Let's talk about the 5800 X3D and how well it held up over time. Let me begin with issues with the CPU, as this is going to be quick. I had absolutely no crashes, no blue screens, no freezes, etc. connected to the CPU itself. It's very stable, but I do try to run the latest BIOS and chipset driver to make sure all the issues that have been discovered are taken care of. Oh, and by the way, when you first install the CPU on an older AM4 motherboard, it's important to update the BIOS and chipset to the latest version so it runs at maximum performance. You will find a link in the video explaining how to do it at the end. So as I mentioned, no issues while gaming, and also I can't recall any issues with the usual set of apps I'm using, Photoshop, Capture One and DaVinci Resolve. This takes me to one drawback that I have with the CPU, and its performance in video editing. Don't get me wrong, it's still perfectly usable, but I do see that the CPU is bottlenecking while doing some more advanced editing using raw video files from Sony Alpha 7 Mark IV, which are really demanding when it comes to hardware. Of course, it's something you should expect when opting for a CPU that's more focused on gaming, but I wanted to mention it anyway. For anyone looking for a good hybrid that will do both productivity and gaming, then I suggest 7950 X3D or 7900 X3D. When it comes to temperatures, I heard a lot of different opinions about the 3D cache CPUs. Some say that they tend to run really hot, others have completely opposite experience, and the truth is both of these are correct. As users and reviewers observed, certain units tend to run much hotter than others, forcing you to use a bit more powerful cooling system to keep the temperatures in check. It's similar to Silicon Lottery, where some CPUs can be overclocked more than the others. Looks like I was lucky in that matter, as my unit rarely gets above 80 degrees Celsius. It was much better before I moved to the C4 from then cases, but even now it's well within acceptable and safe levels. I do, however, use a fairly capable AIO 280 liquid freezer from Arctic. The added cache is not always an advantage, and in some games higher CPU clocks are better, but when the game can utilize the additional L3 memory, it can easily beat even the top-of-the-line flagship CPUs like Intel Core i9 or Ryzen 7950X. And this takes us to the 5800 X3D versus 7800 X3D. Now the 7800 X3D is on average around 15 to 17% faster in games, but there are titles which basically run the same on both CPUs. Modern Warfare 2 is a great example. So the upgrade to 7800 X3D might be worth it, especially now that the prices of AM5 motherboards and DDR5 memories have fallen significantly. If you're on a tighter budget, go with the 5800 X3D, as it will save you around $100 to $200 on average. At this moment, I absolutely see no need to upgrade to newer generation, more so that I play at 4K resolution, and then the majority of the work is done by the GPU, and the gains from the faster CPU are marginal, usually around 5%. So let's sum it up really quickly. How is the 5800 X3D looking in 2023? Really strong, I have to say. After the major price cut, when the latest gen of Ryzen CPUs launched, the 5800 X3D became a really strong price to performance competitor, able to beat even the current flagship models in certain games. And taking into consideration falling prices of AM4 platform, at this time it's a more reasonable purchase, especially if you're playing at 1440p or higher resolution. But even at 1080p, being just 15% slower than the 7800 X3D while costing almost 30% less, you will get a lot of value for the price you're paying. So if you're looking for your next gaming CPU, I really do think the 5800 X3D is worth your attention. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Laser, and I'll see you in the next video.